You ask AI a question, it thinks for a few seconds, it gives you an answer, and somewhere behind all of that, water may have just been used. Which raises a slightly ridiculous question: why the hell does a computer need water? AI doesn't actually live inside your phone. Most of the heavy lifting happens inside enormous buildings called data centers. Imagine a warehouse filled with rows and rows of computers running 24 hours a day, and computers have one annoying habit: they get hot, really hot. Modern AI relies heavily on powerful chips capable of performing enormous numbers of calculations. Put thousands of those machines together and you've essentially built one extremely expensive electric heater. And if you don't remove that heat, well, your billion-dollar AI center becomes a billion-dollar toaster. So data centers need cooling. Some use air, some use sophisticated liquid cooling systems, and many use systems where water ultimately helps carry heat away, including cooling towers where some of that water evaporates. Now here's where the numbers get mental. In 2023, American data centers were estimated to directly consume around 66 billion liters of water. That's roughly 18 billion gallons, and that's only the water consumed directly at the facilities. Because there's another part people forget: generating the electricity that powers a data center can also consume water, depending on where that electricity comes from. So AI can effectively have two water bills: the water used at the data center and water associated with producing its electricity. But before we start blaming ChatGPT for draining the nearest swimming pool, there's an important catch. Nobody can honestly say every AI question uses exactly this much water. It doesn't work like that. Researchers have found the water footprint of individual computing workloads can vary by more than 10,000-fold. Yep, 10,000 times. It depends on what computer hardware is being used, how efficiently it's operating, how the building is cooled, where the data center is located, the weather outside, and even where its electricity comes from. A data center operating somewhere cool with efficient hardware and a low-water cooling system could have a dramatically different footprint from one sitting somewhere hot and dry. Which brings us to the really strange part: we're building more of them, a lot more. AI requires increasingly powerful computing infrastructure, and companies are racing to construct enormous new data centers. In America, data centers already consumed roughly 4.4% of the country's electricity in 2023, and newer estimates suggest that by 2030 they could account for roughly 1/10 or more of all U.S. electricity use, which means cooling all those computers becomes a serious infrastructure problem. And communities are beginning to notice, because if somebody announces they're building a gigantic AI data center near your town, you're probably going to have a few questions. How much electricity does it need? How much water? Who's paying for the infrastructure? And why exactly does my town need to help cool a computer so somebody 2,000 kilometers away can ask it to generate a picture of Shrek riding a kangaroo into battle? But there's another side to this. Data centers are becoming more efficient. Some facilities use recycled or non-potable water. Some use cooling technologies designed to drastically reduce water consumption, and companies are experimenting with increasingly sophisticated liquid cooling and even systems that can operate with very little direct water use. So the real question isn't, does AI use water? It absolutely can. The better question is, how much water should we be willing to use for AI, and where should these enormous data centers actually be built? Because AI might feel completely digital, invisible, somewhere inside the cloud, but the cloud isn't floating above us. It's sitting on the ground. It's full of computers. It needs electricity. It needs cooling. And depending on how we've built it, it can be bloody thirsty. Subscribe to Odd Theory, because the world's weird and we've barely scratched the surface.